report on.
Nice. Speaker view. Okay, perfect. Whoops. I think once I start to talk, it'll thing. Maybe. And then let's share screen. Share. I see our last guest right outside. So let me make sure she knows which one. Good morning. Private class all the time. Hello. Come on in. Hi. And there's some tea behind us if you need any of the things. Okay. Okay, we're gonna get started. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so introductions. We've already all said hi, hello this morning, but I'm Alex, Sarah. Sarah is a new friend of mine, but we have built a really exciting relationship already in the collaboration of Ayurveda and yoga, which we'll discuss a little bit more in a second, how those pair together so well. As you'll know, Sarah owns Waterfall Yoga Therapy, and she's a fantastic yoga therapist. She does so much to help her clients with somatic work, getting some of those issues out of our tissues. And we're going to do some of that today too. So, and then my business is called Dosha Wellness, so it is very new. I just finished my master's degree in integrative healthcare and Ayurvedic studies. And so you can find my business in a wellness suite inside of Light On Yoga Fitness. It's a yoga studio in 5 Points. And I offer Ayurvedic wellness consults there. And both of us will share at the end a little bit more about what we offer and things. So we can chat about that. Okay. All right, we're ready. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is a really cool attunement exercise. So if you wanted to go ahead and get started on that, my dear. Thank you. Yes, perfect.
Okay. So we're going to start with an attunement that is going to incorporate some of the terms that you're going to be hearing us use throughout the day, and you're going to learn more about. So for this practice, we're just going to stay seated, and if your legs are crossed, I ask that you uncross them so that energy flows through the body. And we're going to bring the soles of your feet to the floor, bring your ankles underneath your knees. And you can use the back of the chair if you want. Otherwise, I want you to try to sit up as tall as you can. So if your back is against the chair, make sure you're still holding your shoulders back and sitting upright. So if you're comfortable closing your eyes, I ask that you close your eyes and start to tune into your body, to your soma, with an intention today to listen with an open mind and a listening body, reflecting on the practices as we move and breathe today, asking yourself, what am I feeling? What emotions are arising as I do these practices? How is this affecting my energy? We're going to notice if we want to rush the practice or if we feel bored. You're going to notice that you might feel that your mind is scattered and it wanders away from here to maybe something that you have going on this afternoon or this weekend. So in this practice, I want you to take a moment to feel your feet on the ground. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Observe your ankles. Notice sensation in your lower legs, in your knees. Pleasant or unpleasant sensation as you scan up through your thighs and your sits bones. Observe where your pelvis is. Is your pelvis tipped forward? Is it rounded back so the tailbone draws forward? Or is it somewhere in the middle? Notice as you scan up your spine, feeling your spine, noticing your abdomen, the breath in your chest. Observe what's happening in your shoulders. See if you can relax your shoulders a little bit more, letting your arms grow heavy and relaxed. Allow your hands to relax in your lap, feeling your palms and your fingers. Notice sensation around your neck and your throat. Observe your jaw. If you feel tension, can you relax it a little bit more? Notice your ears hearing my voice and sounds inside and outside of your space. Notice your eyes relaxed. Observe your whole head and face. Now, if you feel heavy, dull, calm, or grounded, these are signs of kapha present in your body, the elements of earth and water. If you notice that you are feeling irritable, constricted, bored, warm or hot in temperature, or in any kind of pain, this shows signs of pitta, which is the fire element. Fire and water. Now notice in your body if you feel cold or dry, rough or itchy, restless or scattered. If you have a tendency towards popping joints, this is vata, air and ether element. So notice how your body is showing up today. Now observe your breathing. What is happening with your breath? How is it showing up today? If your breath feels shallow or fast or kind of choppy, this can be a sign of vata dominance. If you notice impatience, irritability, annoyance, frustration at watching your breath, this may show up as pitta. And if you notice your breath feels heavy or dull or takes effort, this is a sign of kapha. Breath can be a very simple healing medicine of achieving balance. So whatever you are feeling in your body today, if you are feeling that your breath is shallow, fast, or choppy, the vata dominance, I want you to breathe in even breaths. Breathe in for a count of 3 and out for a count of 3. If you noticed in your body more towards frustration at watching your breath, boredom, annoyance, this can show up as pitta. You're going to breathe in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 6, lengthening your exhales, cooling your breath, cooling the fire. And lastly, if you notice that your breath feels very heavy and dull today and takes effort, breathe in for a count of 8. Very long, full, complete inhale, and then shorter exhale. So the exhale is maybe a count of 4 or 6. Deeper inhales if kapha energy is present. Do that for a few more breaths at whatever pace is resonating with you today in your soma, in your living body. And then bring your palms together and rub your palms to create a little bit of warmth. Once you warm your hands, you can place them on your scalp, your temples, your jaw, or any other part of your body where you felt tension as we did our body scan. So maybe it's your shoulders, maybe it's your neck, maybe you're feeling it in your back or your knees. Give attention by rubbing your hands on any part of your body that needs a little TLC today. And as you rub your body with loving kindness and compassion for that body part, send it this warmth energy, this warming energy that you've created in your palms to soothe the area. Now, before we open our eyes, I want you to notice any taste in your mouth. If you notice anything but sweetness or moisture in your mouth, maybe you're feeling on your palate, there's bitter or tangy. Maybe it's very dry, pungent. Anything but sweetness or moisture in the mouth. I want you to roll your tongue around the outside of your mouth, like your tongue, your gums, around your teeth. Just going in a clockwise circle. And I want you to do that again and again until you start to sense sweetness or moisture in your mouth. Clockwise circles. If we're feeling dry or thirsty, there's a lack of moisture, that's a sign of Vata. If our mouth feels sour or salty, it's Pitta. And if our mouth feels sticky or frothy, this is a sign of Kapha. And rolling the tongue around establishes the earth and water element of Kapha to repair and nurture. So once you feel that moisture or sweetness in the mouth, then you can relax your tongue again. And when you're ready, start to blink open your eyes and come back to the room. Good. So some of you may have heard some new descriptions of things, which we're going to learn more about today, but I wanted you to have that body experience. You could kind of see how this is going to work, how doing these little things can help bring your body back into balance. So Alex is going to lead us now into a little bit of sound healing. So go ahead and talk about that, Alex.
Well, now I want to take a nap. So I guess that was lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, so like Sarah said, we're learning new terms, new words. And these words come from Ayurveda, which is an old healthcare system we're going to learn more about. And Ayurveda's big principle is embracing the 5 elements that make up nature. These are ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And so we're learning all of these new terms, but I want you to really think about today as we continue moving on and into this next exercise, think about those elements. And what I'm about to walk you through is a listening exercise where we can feel, hear, and create a sensation of the quality of those elements. So if you want to close your eyes again, all we're going to do is be listening, but I want you to think about the qualities of the elements as we walk through this process, okay? Yes. So we'll begin first here with the sounds of the ether element. One of the best ways that we can understand ether as an element and create some tangible awareness of this is through space. Thinking about space, time. And when we think about the qualities of ether, we know that in space, there's not necessarily air or other elements participating in movement, but there is some sort of gravity, pull, moving quality there. Next, we explore air. What you're hearing now is the sounds of wind rushing. As Sarah mentioned before, we think about this element of air as rough, dry, cold. There's a lot of movement there. Imagine now you're sitting in the middle of a field with this gustling wind, air passing by your body. Just start to imagine the qualities of how that feels. Now we move into fire element. What you're hearing now is the sounds of crackling flames. Imagine we're feeling that heat, that sharpness, that pungentness Sarah mentioned before. Feel that heat against your body now. Now we move into water. The stream moving all of the water past you now. You can hear and feel the sensations of cold, flowing, moving, even a slight oiliness here. Lastly, we move into the earth element. These sounds that you're hearing are the sounds of someone's footsteps walking on soil. There's a density, heaviness, stability in the earth element. Imagine the earth beneath you, holding you grounded, stable through the soil. Supporting all the trees and the luscious plants around you. With our eyes remaining closed, maybe think about which one or many of those elements may resonate with you. Ether, air, fire, water, and earth. When we're ready, we can gently start to blink our eyes back open. Fun stuff. So we'll go ahead and move on now. So the reason we find it to be so important to educate you into the elements, and most importantly through those immersive exercises, find a connection to the 5 elements, is because this is what Ayurveda is all about. The science of Ayurveda translates the word Ayurveda, into science of life, also known as knowledge of life. This is a Sanskrit term. Ayurveda originated over 5,000 years ago in India. So it is an Eastern traditional form of healthcare. And it's actually the foundation of yoga. Ayurveda is the larger, broader understanding of the science of life. And this pillar, yoga, originated through the knowledge of Ayurveda. And so that's why we are finding such an enjoyment of collaborating together, because yoga brings that tangible source of connecting to the elements, connecting to the physiology. And then Ayurveda is the knowledge of the whole holistic body healthcare system. So we'll learn a lot more about that today. So when we mentioned the word holistic, it means that we're embodying and embracing every dimension of wellness. We have our physical wellness. Yoga is a great example of how we can participate actively in that. We have our diet, what goes into our body, what fuels this machine that we're blessed to have. You'll find as we move forward that that's the biggest part of Ayurvedic studies and understandings, is what we're putting into the body. We'll make sense of that in a little bit. Another dimension of wellness can be vocational, even what we do for work, what our dharma, what our purpose is in life, the ways that we use this machine that we live inside of to participate in the world. Of course, spirituality and or religion is a huge dimension there as well. How we make sense of ourselves, our origins, our connections. There are so many dimensions, that go into the word holistic. Stress reduction, how we respond and participate in our mind with the world that we live in today. And to pause there, I find that it's important to mention that we live in such a stress, somewhat toxic environment around us, physically and mentally. And so that's why traditional modalities like Ayurveda, like yoga therapy, are becoming more relevant in today's society. We are really all here for a reason. We're looking for alternatives, if you will, to the ways that we can participate actively in our life and in our healthcare. And so my training in Ayurveda is through, as I mentioned before, an integrative healthcare approach. So I also find it important to acknowledge that our modern society of healthcare and our modern understandings of physiology are extremely important. There's a lot that we have done and achieved in modern medicine to stay well and stay here. But there's so much responsibility that we can take with our own health and our own healthcare through our lifestyle choices. And that's why Ayurveda is considered a lifestyle medicine. From waking to sleeping, what choices are we making through this holistic bubble of those different dimensions of wellness? What decisions are we making for each one of those pillars to live optimally? And that includes modern medicine too. So I always like to make sure that that's something we discuss in these types of workshops. Is there's not a one direction of healthcare for anybody. And so that's why I like Ayurveda, because it embraces everything. And then the reason we called this workshop Let's Ditch the Fads and Find the Practical Wisdom of Ayurveda and Yoga is because in the modern world that we live in, we have a lot of different perspectives I think about it like going to the grocery store or to the beauty counter. There are so many choices. It's so overwhelming, and we're so blessed with having choice. But in that, I think over time, the abundance of health perspectives has gotten a little bit overwhelming. And I think a lot of us have gotten confused on what works best for us. The reason Ayurveda is such a good option is because it doesn't fit one person. It's not one size fits all type of medicine. Whereas we think about certain fads that are popular currently in the world, I can think of just a few, right? No sugar, no gluten, no carbs, um, fasting. Thank you. There's so many different ones. And different prominent people, give us these perspectives and we think, oh, that sounds great. And, for that person, it probably works great. That's why they want to share it. But Ayurveda doesn't see healthcare to be that way. Everybody's physiology is unique and special in its own way. And so Ayurveda is all about curating a lifestyle routine within all of those dimensions of wellness we discussed, finding what works best for you. So what works best for me could be a totally different thing for Sarah, could be a totally different thing for April or Willow. So we have to find that uniqueness within our physiology. That's
yoga therapy too, being the sister science. Yoga therapists are trained in Ayurveda. So we see that we want to meet the people where they are. Yoga therapy is generally not like a yoga class. It's working with a person one-on-one for their particular needs. So you're meeting the person where they're at, and that is part of this, like, not everybody fits the same mold. We have to find out what works for you and what works for you. And so it is very, this is why we call it that sister science, because they very much are using this idea of this is a philosophy of lifestyle. So changing or manipulating your lifestyle to benefit what your imbalances are or what your prakriti is.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna, I think, continue to evolve further and further in the world into these understandings, and people are gonna continue to seek this. I really believe that. There's a proverb in Ayurveda, as you can read behind us: what serves as medicine for one can be poison for another. And I think that is just so true in the world today. So that's why we're ditching the fads and we're embracing whole body care and individualized medicine. And so Ayurveda connects us back to our origin, which is nature. And by nature, I mean the 5 elements, how we are just as connected to the trees and the other person sitting next to you and your dog at home. We're all different manifestations of nature. So we're using Ayurveda to connect us back to that, to find that balance. So the idea too with Ayurveda is that we're all comprised of those 5 elements that we've been exploring so far this morning. Every one of us has all of them. It's just that what makes us unique, and Sarah mentioned the word prakriti, which is an Ayurvedic Sanskrit term for individual constitution. Our prakriti is individual. So we all have the 5 elements, but we have bits and pieces of each that make us who we are. And so everybody's prakriti in the room is going to be slightly different. There's going to be some changes there. And so because we're comprised of the 5 elements of nature, we achieve balance when we're in harmony with nature. And we see that, in the environment around us. Nature has a really exceptional way of staying in balance. The forest is a really great example. So much lushness and growth. When it finds it's going out of balance, there's a fire that kind of burns everything down, total opposite of itself, but then restoring fresh and new. nature does this all on its own in many different capacities every day. So we're capable of doing that too. So we're going to share some of that with you today. So as Sarah said, we were collaborating together. Yoga translates to yoke together. Ayurveda means working with nature. So we're collaborating with both of those today. So let's go through the 5 elements again. So Ayurveda talks about the 5 elements as subtle to gross. So we always share Ayurvedic elements as ether, air, fire, water, earth. That's because ether is the most subtle element. And then we continue going through the 5 elements into the most gross, the most heavy, the most manifest, which would be that earth element. So ether, it's comprised of those light, subtle, yet dynamic qualities. So like I said before, if we think about space or just time around us, there's not really like much of a tangible quality to it, but we know that there's a lot happening. There's a lot of dynamism there. There's a lot of gravity at work, a lot of science, right? And then when we move into air, it has moving, rough, cool qualities. It's taking a lot of travel with it. Fire, it's extremely pungent. It's sharp. It has that slight oily quality to it as well. If you consider and think of the concept of a flame moving back and forth, it's heat, but there's almost like an oiliness to it. It's very hot. Getting even more manifest in the elements is water coming up next. Again, that slight oil quality to it. It's moving, it's cooling, it has some density, heaviness. And then lastly, the most gross, the largest of them all, earth. Heavy, stable, grounded. The soil beneath us is typically cool in nature, temperature-wise. So that's kind of the gist of the 5 elements. So let's talk about what makes us so unique in the 5 elements, which is the most exciting part of Ayurveda, I find, because personally for me, I love taking quizzes and understanding like how I resonate with things. That's when we get excited about stuff, is what does it mean for me? So in Ayurveda, there's a term called doshas. So doshas are the manifest of those 5 elements. And each one of us is a dosha. So that prakriti that we call our individual constitution, we manifest that as a dosha. So let's talk about those. So like we said, all of the elements are present within our physiology, and the 3 doshas we'll explore today influence everything from your body type, that prakriti, your digestion, your disposition, how you communicate, your sleep habits, your stress, so much more. So each dosha represents a bodily system, and each one of us in this room today are going to find which one we have the most of. Doshas are represented in all living things. So hopefully today, when you leave, learning all these new things, it's a lot to take in, but our hope is that when you depart, you'll kind of look at the world a little bit differently and maybe be able to next week at the Thanksgiving table say, oh, my Aunt Franny, she is a strong pitta dosha, or Lois is moving around crazy in the room, talking, just can't settle down, can't stop moving her hands. Oh, she is a vata. And then you've got Ben, sweet Ben. He just sits still, doesn't have much to say, but we kind of like sitting next to him because he's the most grounded. It's probably a kapha. Right? So there's different ways we can look at each other and the world differently when we understand this. So as it pertains to us, knowing your predominant dosha type makes it easy to find, like we said, those lifestyle habits that you can augment for you. So when you know what you resonate with most, we can then augment our routine to find that balance instead of creating too much of something or too little of another. This will support your unique needs. They also help us to understand our tendencies, again, towards balance or imbalance. So we'll move to the first dosha. So the first dosha is called Vata. So Vata, as we discussed before, it's made of the ether and the space elements. So when we know now kind of the qualities of those elements, you can imagine that Vata doesn't have much tangibility to it. It's like on the move. It's kind of just up in the air. It's made of these very moving, light, subtle, dynamic qualities to it. And Vata in the bodily systems governs those things that are moving. It governs the brain, all of those synapses of communication, all the untangible things that we know from our physiology. Our bodily communications of the nerve systems, all of that incredible intelligence of the body. Again, we can't see it, but we know it's happening. I'm telling my right finger to lift up. It does it because I have this incredibly intelligent communication system in my body. It governs the circulation. This is our blood, moving the blood through the body. It governs our colon. So moving elimination, moving toxins out of the body as well. The intestines and the colon are a main source, a main important part to the Vata dosha. We'll discuss this a little bit too. So also reproductive flow. So for females, the menstruation, the movement of eggs through ovulation, all that movement is controlled in Vata dosha. And then it also governs the bones. So bones, we think of having this like dense heaviness to them, but they're actually super hollow on the inside. There's a lot of marrow and a lot of moving qualities in there too. So again, we see the qualities of Vata dosha there: moving, cool, dry, rough, a little subtle, because we can't really see it, but we know it's there. So Vata dosha, when it's in balance, all those things that it governs are working great. We have clear communication between our nerve endings. We have passive movement of the colon. It's doing its job. It's eliminating properly. We're not having to force anything. We have productive movement of our reproductive systems, really stable, consistent, balanced menstruation. We have a clear mind, free of anxiety, nervousness, overthinking, some of the things I do on a daily basis. Maybe y'all can relate to that as well. And that's when out of balance, when Vata dosha is out of balance and we have too much of that wind, cold, roughness in our body. We experience problems in our nerves. We experience constipation. There's too much dry and roughness in the colon. It can't passively move and eliminate. Maybe the menstrual blood that's coming out is dry or brown, not super unctuous and enlivened. It's drying. Maybe there's overthinking, anxiety in the brain. There could be degeneration in the bones that it controls. We can also see this externally through dry skin, dry eyes, dry nails. If you look at an older person going through what we call the Vata time of life, which is the elderly years, you'll typically find that a lot of our elders have super dry skin. They have a lot of wrinkles, things like that, all normal, all expected. It's that season of life. They're in Vata time. But you can see that represented tangibly in their physiology. Lastly, here is low immunity. So as you can see, Vata governs a lot of the important stuff. So when it's out of balance, we can see struggles in our immune system there. So I want to pause for a second because it's a lot of information. It's a lot of stuff. But can you resonate? Can you think of anything when Vata could be out of balance for you? Like any times in your life where you've noticed like, oh, wow, I was really anxious that year. I was really on the move. My skin, I just could not keep it moisturized. I had some problems with elimination. Good example, right? When we're super anxious, we're moving a lot. A good example is when people are traveling and they're super anxious and they're on the move, people get constipated. It's like the first thing that happens. Out of routine, out of balance. We can't poop on our trip to Hawaii. And it really dampens your experience, right? So these are cool like examples where we can just make sense of the simplicity of our physiology, what's going on. It could be that simple to say, I haven't been able to poop in like 3 days. What's going on up here? What's going on in the environment around us? If we think about the seasons, we're in Vata season right now. Dry, rough, moving. Leaves are falling. We can see it and feel it in our environment. So again, seeing how these doshas are represented around us all the time. So if you're struggling right now with some of these things that we've mentioned, and there are more that could be happening, and we can discuss this if you would like, but if you're struggling with these things, maybe now you can make a little bit of sense out of like, oh, why I've been, just like so overwhelmed, overthinking. I can't poop. What's going on? My nerves, I'm feeling a lot of nerve pain lately. My skin is super dry. My lips are super dry this season. Things like that. So this is how we kind of make sense of the doshas. Okay, so let's move on to now Vata yoga postures for balance, how we can incorporate the tangibility here. I'm going to turn my screen so those at home can see sweet Sarah.
So if you'd like to come out of your chair and come forward, you can. I'm going to demonstrate in the chair in case anyone can feel comfortable being on the floor. And we're going to start in a pose called child's pose. So you may be familiar. If you're in child's pose, you're going to sit back on your heels or close to it. Your butt might be a little bit elevated. And your knees can be together or they can be apart. Your forehead's going to come down to the mat, or you can stack your hands and let your head rest on your forehead. The mats are clean, but if you're worried about that, good. And if at home you're in your chair, you can just fold forward in your chair and modify your child's pose. So in your child's pose, we are connecting to that idea of closing down the wind and the ether. We want to find a way to connect to the ground, the opposites. And we're going to talk more about this in the class. So if we're up in air and ether and everything's really imbalanced in that sense, we're feeling scattered, we're feeling overwhelmed, then we can become closed off in child's pose to kind of reground and connect to the earth, the opposite of air and ether. So in your child's pose, connect to your breathing. We talked earlier about breathing in evenly, inhaling for 3, exhaling for 3, or 4, or 5, whatever the capacity of your breath is. So this is it's allowing us to pacify all 3 doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, closing out all of the external distractions, coming into yourself, even breathing in and out. So spending a few more breaths here in your rhythm. Maybe as you breathe, your breath becomes a little bit more full in capacity. Maybe you notice your breath starts to become longer. And on your next exhale, you're going to slowly pick up your head and your body back to a neutral position. And we're going to transition to another position on your back. So as you lie down on your back, you can keep your knees bent and your feet on the floor. And that's especially more comfortable for people who have lower back pain. Just kind of get settled. If you're in your chair at home, you might turn your knees just a little bit slightly sideways. Do some supine twists if you're laying on the floor in a chair. Twist from here. So in your lying down position, practice a little bit of something called a mudra. So mudras are hand gestures, and this one in particular is a Apana mudra. So I'll walk around so you can see. You're going to bring your thumb tip to your middle and your ring finger, and your index finger and pinky finger are going to be extended, and then you can relax your arms back down by your sides, palms facing up. So Apana mudra is downward flow. outward flow. So in yoga and Ayurveda, we talk about vayus, different ways in which our energy moves. And Alex mentioned that sometimes with Vata, we can become dry and maybe constipated. So if we have this problem, we can take a mudra, which is connecting certain fingers together. We have more nerve endings in our fingers than anywhere else in the body. And when we create these circuits, we're made of electricity. When we connect these circuits in the body, it creates a flow of energy. So we're incorporating this downward, outward flow, grounding, less air and ether, bringing in the earth element. So just feel that in your body as you connect to your hands. Do you feel more grounded? Do you feel more stable? And then you can keep your mudra in your hands if that's comfortable for you. We're going to start to let the knees rock to the right. And then up through center and to the left. So you're windshield wipering your knees. Your head is more than welcome to roll in the opposite direction of your knees if you want to incorporate some movement into the neck. In this gentle twist, we are pacifying Vata, Pitta, and Kapha again. We are encouraging movement through our abdominal organs, our digestion, just with a gentle squeezing of the abdomen. And then connect to your breathing again. Did you stop breathing? When we coordinated the movement, maybe you inhale to one side for a count of 3 or 4, and then exhale to the other for 3 or 4. Good. Now go ahead and bring your knees back to center. And just take a moment. Feel and breathe. Notice what has changed. Do you feel less maybe overwhelmed or scattered or more focused, more grounded, more calm? All right, we have one more position for our Vata practice. So for this one, if you feel comfortable, we're going to roll over onto your belly and lay on your stomach. And you can lay in what we call alligator pose. So your forehead can rest on your hands, your legs are extended behind you. Your feet are somewhat separated apart from each other. If you are in a chair at home, you can also just be in a seated position with your knees or your ankles. Once you get into your alligator pose, we're going to move into kind of what is called cobra. So when you're ready, I want you to bring your head and chest slightly up off the floor. So you're going to slide your hands back beside your ribs or your chest so that you can lift your head up slightly. Then I want you to sniff in through your nose, kind of like taking in some sniffs, like you're smelling a flower. And I want you to imagine that you're gathering up all of these scattered, overwhelmed, anxious feelings of Vata. Imagine that you're sweeping them into your navel center. And I want you to do it again, just a big sniff in through the nose, and then stick out your tongue, and you're going to pant like a dog. And then do it again, sniff, 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 and then exhale. Stick out the tongue, let all of that anxious, overwhelmed, scattered, unfocused energy breathe out through your mouth like a fog. It's silly, it's meant to be silly. Breathe in through your nose and exhale, pant. Now go ahead and bring your hands back underneath your forehead and relax all the way down into the mat. And feel and breathe back in that neutral pattern, in for 3, out for 3. Even breaths in and out. And as you're lying here, notice if you notice your emotions maybe are a little more diluted, a little more feeling more in tune with yourself, more embodied. Is there a shift in the way that you are feeling? Right now, we're kind of in education mode, so we're in thinking brain. Notice if you just kind of came back to yourself a little bit, being silly, being on your body, on the floor, on your belly, or in some more comforting poses where maybe we're feeling like we can close out all of this stuff that's causing anxiety. Now, when you're ready, go ahead and bring your hands back underneath you so you can press yourself up to a seated position. And then we'll come back to your chairs. And I'd love to hear from people if you were noticing something at the beginning of the practice that shifted or changed for you. Anything that you observed of Vata within yourself that maybe felt a little more earthy or grounded out? Anybody want to share?
I feel more moisture in my mouth.
Wonderful, good, okay.
Dry.
Yeah,
Felt like my thoughts were scattered. My mind tends to shoot all.
yeah. So April said she felt more moisture in her mouth and she felt more rounded, less scattered. So that's exactly evidence of how a yoga practice of breathing or meditation or movement can bring us out of these imbalances that we're feeling in our body back embodied and feel more stable. Perfect. Anybody else?
It was just calm.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
calmer, exactly.
which is probably.
Yeah, grounded. Exactly right.
Willow said she was also feeling more energetic, grounded, more calm. Well, I don't know if any of y'all enjoy public speaking, but I don't think most people do. And so personally, I can relate in that moment of being in education mode, like Sarah said, talking, explaining. It's a lot of new information. I get nervous sometimes when I do these workshops of, is that feeling, right? You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, right? We have to embrace that in this life. So I felt great relief from that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Okay, so we're ready to move on to the next dosha, which is Pitta. So Pitta is always a fun one to chat about because this is the fire, right? So Pitta is made of the fire and water elements. So it's my favorite dosha because I find it to be the most balanced. As ironic as that may sound, as we learn more about what Pitta dosha does and when it's out of balance. But it's made of fire and water. It is out of all the doshas the most balanced within itself. It's pungent, it's hot, it's sharp, fire qualities, but then it's also cool and flowing and slightly oily to relax these things out. So I find that very interesting about the Pitta dosha. So Pitta has very important governings in the physiology as well. It governs our digestion, which in Sanskrit and in Ayurveda is referred to as Agni. If we think about digestion, when we think about the stomach organ, so Vata, right, governs the intestines, the colon, but Pitta governs here the stomach organ. So we think about hydrochloric acid. It has to be super pungent, super sharp, super hot, acidic even, to digest food, to break those molecules down of food. So it's got a big role to play. We need that fire working in Pitta. It controls our skin. So we'll find when pitta can become out of balance, we'll see fiery things in our skin. Acne, inflammatory skin conditions like acne, rosacea, redness, right? So vata, when it's out of balance, we can observe that dryness in the skin, we can observe it, but pitta actually governs the skin as an overall organ. So super indicative when it's an easy, tangible one to see right off the bat if there's too much heat in one's body, right? It governs our emotions. So as Sarah said in the earlier exercise, are we feeling bored, irritated, things like that? That's pitta, really taking control of our emotions there. But on the flip side, contrary, what makes pitta so incredible in that is it governs our intelligence, not our brain organ necessarily, but our actual intelligence, our capacity for knowledge. So although pitta governs our emotions and there can be a lot of intensity there, it's actually a really great thing too, because we need that drive. We need that heat inside of our brain power to make us want to crave knowledge. It governs our blood, so our liver. So if we think about just the heat of pitta in general, tangibly thinking about the color of blood being red, it colors the blood. It makes it that red, that heat color. This includes menstrual blood as well. It governs our eyesight, so our inner and outer intelligence. So not our inner and outer eyesight. So not just the eye itself as a piece to the body, but that third eye. So our ability to understand vibes, essentially, right? So our third eye coming out with our intuition, if you will. And then a big one for pitta is the heart. It governs the heart muscle. It governs that organ. It keeps the blood pumping through it, but it also governs there. So we can imagine when pitta is in a balanced state, we have good, strong digestion. It's things digest easily. We don't feel heavy or sick after eating meals. Everything processes correctly. We have enough of that HCl in there. We have a strong intelligence. We have good, healthy eyesight. We have stable, controlled emotions, free of frustration. We have healthy blood and heart. The quality of our blood is good. And we have clear skin. So we can see all of these representations in the body when pitta. But when out of balance, contrary, in the stomach, we might experience hyperacidity. So after eating meals, if we have that GERD, that really acidic nature quality to our belly, that's a good sign of pitta being too much. There's too much fire. It's creating too much of an acidic environment. We can experience, again, those skin conditions like acne or rosacea. We can emotionally have a tendency to express aggression, anger, confusion, irritability overall. And in terms of our blood and heart capabilities, we can experience hypertension. That would be high blood pressure, blood disorders overall. When it comes to eye health, we can have degenerative eye health. So if you had struggles with your eyesight at just a young kid, you might be like, but how could they, have, already gotten pitta out of balance? Well, you can thank your genetics, right? That's where we then attach the modern understanding of genetics. Maybe the parents had too much heat in their body when you were conceived, things like that. There's a very karmatic understanding in Ayurveda through those things. We can have early balding or graying. So when there's too much heat in the body, you can imagine that kindled flame is firing, it's burning, and it's heating up too much of the body. So in any area, but when we think about hair, it's a very vulnerable part of our body. So it can very quickly and easily get burnt up. So we'll see that as well in pitta increase. So pitta's a really good dosha. It's so important because we really need it, just like any other dosha. But I think sometimes when, especially going through school and learning, we have these talks all the time, and people, when they first learn that they may have excess pitta, or too much pitta, it's like, oh, I've got a lot of pitta. There's like a stigmatized thing about like, oh, pitta must be bad. No, it's such a great dosha. I might be a little bit, speaking for myself because I have a lot of pitta in my body. So, okay. So are there any questions as we move through about that? Has anybody ever experienced an increase of these qualities in their body that they'd like to share? Or, personally, for me, I've experienced acne rosacea in my life. My other career path is being an esthetician, so doing skincare. And that's actually what drew me to skincare for my career path, was that I was dealing with such stubborn rosacea. I had all of this redness and just, you could see it in my skin, and I just couldn't quite figure it out. How to balance that, even as an esthetician. And then when I found Ayurveda, I realized I relied so much more than just topicals to heal that. I needed to remove the heat from my body. And I found tremendous relief from that personally. So, okay. Okay, so let's move on and do some Pitta yoga postures for balance.
Then you can be in your chair if you want, be on the floor if you'd like. Just getting up and taking breaks is helpful, so we don't fall asleep on Alex. So we're gonna sit down, in a comfortable seat or in your chair. Comfortable, I mean, you can sit cross-legged, you can sit with your legs out, you can sit like this, doesn't matter. But anytime that we're trying to move energy, we want to sit up as tall as we can. So take a roll of your shoulders, lengthen your spine. We're going to start for Pitta with another mudra or hand gesture. This time I want you to take your pinky finger to your thumb tip and then extend the other three fingers and then let your palms rest, the backs of your hands rest on your lap. So Jala Mudra incorporates the element of water. So if we have fire and water, maybe the fire is a little bit out of balance. We're angry, we're irritable, we're annoyed, we're frustrated. We bring in water to balance that, to cool it a little bit. So after taking Jala Mudra, we're also going to practice a breathing exercise. So in Pitta, we're very fiery. This one I use a lot for my ladies who are going through menopause and might be having hot flash. So if you can roll your tongue, you may have never checked this out, but you're going to roll your tongue and try to create a straw. Some people like physically can't do it.
I cannot.
Yeah.
I tried.
So she like it. So the equivalent to that is just taking the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth right behind the front of your teeth, and then kind of separating your lips so that the air passes through the tongue. And if you do that, you can kind of feel cool air coming into the hot body, right? Or like a straw. So close your eyes, choose one of those two options to breathe in cool air past your tongue into your body. And we talked earlier about to cool Pitta, we can breathe in shorter breaths and longer exhales. So start to really bring in 3 or 4 counts of breath in through your tongue, seal your lips, and then breathe the hot air out through your nose for a longer exhale, maybe a count of 5 or 6. Cool air in through your tongue and warm air out through your nose, exhaling. Longer exhale. Empty the lung. This is called Sitali breath. Do it a couple more times on your breathing. Cool breath in through the tongue. Sealing your lips. Breathing out through the nose, warm, hot breath out. Now go ahead and breathe normal breaths through your nose. Just notice if you feel cooling in your body. If you dry your mouth, because we're breathing through our mouth, and we know mouth breathing is not generally encouraged, you can take your tongue again and swirl clockwise circles around your teeth and gums until you start to feel that moisture come back in. And if it's really bad, you can drink water. Okay, so if you feel like letting go of your mudra, you can relax that now, place your hands somewhere on your lap, and we're gonna move through cat-cow. So most of us are pretty familiar with that. We're gonna breathe in as we come forward. And then a really long, slow exhale out through your nose as you round your back, tuck your pelvis, drop your chin to your chest. So breathing in, lifting your heart. Breathing out, rounding. And I want you to think about the quality of water and fire. So as you're moving your spinal column into arching and grounding, you're paying attention to the fluidity, grace, smoothness. And we're also moving the fire element, which settles at the navel center. So we're moving from the navel back and forth, kind of massaging the digestive organs, encouraging movement, digestion. Good. Now coming back to neutral spine, just observe that did it start to smooth out a little bit, more fluid for you, more mobile. Notice if the fire energy is starting to cool in that observation. Good. Now another thing that we're going to practice, I think Pitta is always very, we're intense. We want to do things right. We're perfectionists. We aim to achieve, right? Success, power. And so in some of that, we can be really so intense that we don't really have a lot of fun. We're very serious people. So it's like, to be silly, you're like, no, I have these things to do, these tasks need to be done. And so that can be kind of harsh, right? So we want to have a little fun with this. We know that that fire element can give us the drive that we want, but we also can be like very competitive, you know, like, oh, mine's better than her. And so we have to learn to chill a little bit. So with the idea of cooling, I want us to do a little movement practice. So now we're going to take that rigid cat-cow that stands on one plane of existence, and we're going to start to move like a snake. Just any way that feels good. Oh, just moving the body three-dimensionally. Think about the water, the wave. Less rigidity, less competition. Just close your eyes, feel movement. If you've got inflammation in the body, stiffness, can you move it away in which invites some moisture, some idea of letting go. And then I want you to take a big sniff in through the nose. And then on an exhale, as you're moving like a snake, until all the air is empty from your lungs. And then do it again, a big breath in. And then let out all that frustration, anger, seriousness. Let it be silly. We don't just have to do this in kindergarten yoga, people. We can be adults and be silly. So breathing in. We're really ticked off at our spouse, our kids, our boss. Just let it out. All that. Exactly. And finally, take a good breath in, back to center, upright, and observe in your body, letting your breath now neutralize, feeling? Have I chilled out a little bit? Am I a little more subtle? Back to the parts of yourself that are water, fire. When we're really fired up, we can burn down bridges, right? You can burn place down. When we're too little pitta, when we kind of burned ourselves out, we've gone and gone and gone and gone and gone until we have nothing left. That's when that fire is now just a little flame. You might be able to connect to those two aspects. So when you're ready, let's come back to our seats for kapha, and I would love again to hear anybody's input about that. Is there an experience that you've had where you maybe observed pitta in your dosha, and how the practice resonated?
When I was breathing in the cold air, I actually had chills. Whole body.
Chill,
I
yeah,
felt cold everywhere,
yeah.
not just.
I
felt that.
Me too.
And that kind of continued on for all.
Yeah. So she was doing the Sitali breath and felt her body get chills. So she felt it through her whole soma. And yeah, so you can imagine if you're having a hot flash, you're literally burning up from the inside out, how you can do that breathing practice to cool your internal body temperature really, really quickly. And you know, you can do it subtly, you know, if you're at the grocery store and you're sweating and you can be like breathing in through your tongue and out. Nobody has to know.
And the next time I has aggravates me, I'm gonna become the snake.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I can't either.
You might
I wanna hear
scare
about
it.
I don't know what it's the snake, that's gonna be a new snake.
She's gonna be a snake the next time her husband irritates her. So that's awesome. I love it.
Anybody else want to share? I loved it. I kind of felt like an icy hot moving through my body for a second.
Yeah.
I did. It was good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to the third and the last dosha here. So kapha, kapha is, you know, known to be like that favorite dosha, like I said, right? The person at Thanksgiving lunch that you might see next week that's just like you're chill, you're grounded person. They're not talking a lot. They may not be the stubborn, irritable one in the group. They're just chill Ben. You know, we love Ben, right? He's the good friend in the group. And that's because he's made up of all of that sweetness that kapha dosha is comprised of. Kapha dosha is that oily, stable, heavy. It's got that unctuousness to it. It's also a little bit cool. A physical representation of kapha dosha that's often used as an example is honey. Honey is a really good example of kapha. It's that unctuous, like heavy, it's got that density to it. You know, we don't necessarily need to think about like the soil of dirt in this situation as an example, like, but that heaviness, that thickness, that sweetness, that's kapha dosha. So kapha governs the structure of our bodies, so the physical structure. So like our joints, our muscles, everything that keeps us stable as a physiology, it governs that. It governs the immune system. Its main resonance in the body is the head and the chest. So it governs kind of the sinuses and the lungs. So this time of year in particular, when those of us may feel a little bit out of balance, it's sick season. This is kapha dosha is really affected this time of year, and we're going to see it directly in these places typically. It also governs our throat, our speech. Lubrication overall of the whole body. So again, lubricating those structural areas, our joints, our ligaments, our tendons. It lubricates the lungs, it lubricates the throat, the mouth, all of these areas. CSF stands for our cerebral spinal fluid. So it's that lubricative quality to the spinal column. It also controls and regulates our lumbar region. So down in this low back, that trunk, if you will, of our body, thinking about the tree example here of kapha, it controls that dense, that heavy part of our body that keeps us stable. It controls our nutrient absorption through all of these areas, and then it also controls our growth. So it's got that nutrient dense quality, that heaviness to it. So it controls kind of the way that we proceed through the lifespan, if you will. We talked earlier about how Vata dosha is kind of that elderly time of life. That's when we see those elements of Vata. Things get dry, things get crackly, we get those wrinkles. We lose kind of the capacity of our nerve systems. Kapha is the beginning of life. It controls the growth. So when we think of a newborn baby or like a 6-year-old little boy, you know, we see all that kapha and then we see that honey quality to them. We see the life-giving properties. That's the kapha time of life. And then for most everybody in the room today, pitta is the other stages. So that middle big chunk of life, right? It's that like we've got stuff to do. We're taking care of business time of life. That's when pitta happens. So when kapha is in balance, we see all these healthy things occurring. We see a strong immune system free of sinus and lung issues. We don't have that common cold this time of year. We're experiencing clear speech and a strong sense of confidence. We're grounded and stable in our speech. We know what we have to say. Our joints and tendons and ligaments are well lubricated. We're free of issues in our knees, areas like that. We have a strong lumbar region, free of lumbar pain. So a lot of people in life, you know, really struggle with that low back pain. That's a good sign that kapha may be a little bit out of balance. When in balance, we see increased absorption in healthy areas of the hair, skin, and nails. It's, you know, we're seeing that unctuousness there in those areas. When out of balance, we're going to experience poor immunity. We're going to see it in chronic cold flu symptoms. Your person in your life, a friend or family member that you know, they get the common cold every year. They may get it multiple times a year. That's an indicative example of they have a really imbalanced kapha. We might get sore throat, inability to speak clearly, again, poor joint health. And then when we talk about the growth element of kapha, when it's too much growth, unhealthy, that's when we'll see things like tumors, overgrowth of things we don't want in the body. Kind of again, going back to, you know, the ways that we see this in other people. So your kapha person in your life is probably going to be that like strong, structured person. They may not necessarily be just tall, but in their gait, in the way that their body moves, they're like very slow moving in their steps. There's a stability to them. They're like the tree that's on the move, you know, they're that really stable. And then again, emotionally speaking, they're just, you know, well, just whatever happens, man. You know, they're that chill person.
Very mothering and
very nurturing.
Loving.
Yeah.
Kind quality.
Yeah. And we're going to learn more. I keep kind of giving you tidbits of like what that would look like in other people, because we're going to kind of do some examples as we move forward. But I just kind of want to get your think tank going on how to observe that, give you examples. So we're going to end with our last yoga posture for kapha here.
Yeah. So with kapha, we are earthy, we are heavy, right? We might feel dull, we might be stagnant, we might have emotions when kapha is imbalanced of sadness, grief, aversion. I don't want to do that. Like I just want to stay in bed, pull the blankets up over our head, right? So with this one, we're going to stand up because we want to move earth energy up into space, ether, air. We want to get our bodies going, right? So with this one, the mudra or hand gesture is middle finger to the thumb tip. And once you take your middle finger to your thumb tip, this is Akasha mudra. And so this is the space element. So we're bringing more space into our heavy, earthy body. And we're just gonna stand with the feet about hip distance, shoulder distance apart. Nice and soft in the knees, and not locking your knees out. As you take your mudra, just let it relax at your sides, maybe roll the shoulders. And just feel the density of your body. Feel gravity. When we're really heavy in Kapha, we feel heavy. We feel like, oh, gravity's just kind of dragging me down. So you feel that density, the earth. Feel it under your feet. And then as you relax your shoulders, connect to the mudra in your hands. Feel that sense of space all around you. And sense the space within you. And with Kapha energy, we might have really heavy breath too. So see if you can shorten your exhales now. In Pitta, we lengthen the exhale. In Kapha, we want to shorten. So we want to bring breath and energy into the body. Bring prana in. So big, long, deep breath in as long as you can get, and then short breath, just let it go. Good. Now, feeling that energy in your body, we're going to start to move. You can release your mudra now. We're going to do something called breath of joy. So in Kapha, we want to bring joy in, lightness in. We're going to move our arms up over the head, out to the side, and then up over the head again. And then we're going to swoosh the arms down by your side, bending your knees, kind of in a ski position. So it's inhale, 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 taking in all the breath. Let it out through the mouth with that hum. Ah. Maybe you're feeling that heaviness, that dullness in the body. Kind of, I don't want to do anything today. We're picking up that energy. We're breathing in air and space. One more, wherever you are. And then come to standing again. Let your arms rest to the side. Yeah. Feel that energy created.
Stimulated.
Kind of feels tingly.
Yeah.
So tingly. Like all the air went to your head.
Yeah. All to your limbs. Extremity.
Extremity. So that's breath of joy. Breathing is incredible healer. So sometimes if that's all we can do, that's perfect. We're going to do a posture now. So we're going to take our feet a little bit wider on your mat. So you may even be off your mat. You can also turn sideways if you feel like you're sliding in your socks. And we're going to bend the knees so that the knees follow the line of the second toe. And you don't have to, this isn't aerobics. We're not going deep into poses. You can just come in a little bit. And this is our goddess pose. So we're going to take Akasha mudra again, middle finger and thumb tip. We're going to bring the arms up. And we're going to inhale, straighten the legs, straighten your arms like a big X. And then exhale, drop into your goddess. Or God pose for Michael there. Exhale. Inhale. Feel free to make sounds. Sometimes we just have to be still. Yeah. Feels good to let it out. Good. Last one. arms reach up, let your arms float down. Good, heel toe in, bring your leg back under you. Wiggle those hips a little bit, move around, as it feels comfortable in your body.
That's something.
Yeah, what is exciting? Good, yeah. So now just stand back in your mountain pose for a moment. And soft knees, relaxed arms, maybe a Kasha mudra that resonates with you. Close your eyes and feel your soma, your living body. Notice the qualities of earth beneath you, the heaviness, the gravity. But also notice now the sense of air and ether lightness that help wrap that heavy, dull, earthy sensation back into a lightness, into balance. Just with a couple simple activities. It wasn't even a whole yoga class, right? Just really simple. And then I would love to hear again from anybody their experience of kapha. Maybe you were feeling like, oh, how much longer is this lecture gonna last? Let's move on. I want to do something. So what did you experience? Is there more lightness, more energy, more awake?
You're not so heavy.
Okay.
When we first started, I felt like Trump,
Yes.
a little light.
Yeah. So April felt like she was heavy like a trunk. And now she's feeling more light. Yeah. More light. Good. And yeah, Heather noticed it too. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, in John's that one where you go.
Breath of joy. Yeah.
I love that.
Yes, me too.
That's awesome.
My
So
favorite.
fun. Very stimulating.
Yeah. Breath of joy is great. And simple.
And then Tracy at home said breath of joy is energizing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
We love
It's
that.
nice to know that sometimes you don't have time to, to a whole session,
Mhm.
but you know that you can step aside and do that in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And feel different.
Exactly. So as a yoga therapist, when you're working one-on-one with people, you're dealing with all different doshas and lifestyles. I mean, some of these people have kids and they go to college and they're going to work and, you know, they're juggling a lot of different balls. And so how can we fit these things into a busy schedule if we don't have time to sit on our mat for an hour a day?
I love it. Breath of joy makes us feel like that kapha kid again. Can have some enjoyment. Okay, so our next exercise, this is such a fun exercise because this is where we get to kind of do that application into saying like, okay, we see so-and-so at the market, or we see family member or a friend, or even ourselves. So this is called Guess the Dominant Dosha. So we have our 3, and you have your reference page at the very front where you can see Vata, Pitta, Kapha here in the bottom right. And we just kind of go back to the elements there of what we're seeing in those people. This isn't about Pitta moment being super right. You know, this is just for fun to kind of just see. So I kind of just encourage you to pick 2, maybe 3 maximum of these very well-known people in society, and see if you can kind of guess which dosha you think that they dominate with. And I'd like you to, of course, we're seeing their faces, but if you can kind of envision like everything about them, you know, are they tall? Are they little and skinny? Are they, you know, more dense? Do they have that oily quality to their skin? Again, are they losing their eyesight? Are they early balding or graying? Do they move a lot? What are things that we can identify with them? So I'm going to give you just a minute or so here and just give you a second. And Tracy at home, if you want to chime in on the chat, let us know. if you have any thoughts on some of them. And remember, we're all comprised of all of them. This is just kind of which one do we observe may dominate in this person. There's no right or wrong. I'm going to kind of explain some of these qualities a little bit further.
And another thing too is when we think about using practices to bring us back into balance, it's not to be equal vata, pitta, kapha. It's to be balanced as to our makeup is. If we dominate as vata, then we want to just balance vata. We don't want it to be like scattered, overwhelmed, anxious. We want to be grounded in that vata. So as you mentioned, they're not bad qualities. They're just qualities.
Yep. Okay. So does anybody have one that they want to shoot out that they feel no pressure, no right or wrong, just anything that you may notice in any of these people?
I would say overall, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Great, great. Anybody else? Uh-huh.
You know, I was going to try to understand, so you brought up earlier too, genetics is also, Michael
Sure.
Fox, to me, is very, but the genetics have gone to a point where he's dealing with nerves.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that you brought that up.
And his speech.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, great observation. So there's a reason that we included Michael J. Fox in this.
Yeah.
And so since we're on that point, let's go ahead and address it. So we didn't in the presentation talk about physical qualities of each person for a reason, because I wanted there to be kind of a match here when we talk about it. So since we're on the topic of Vata, Michael J. Fox is a really easy Vata guy. He's made of air and space qualities. You can see he's dainty, he's little. Even his facial features you can see are his eye socket. He's got little eyes, little lips, things like that. And remember, we all have all of them. So it's not a one size perfection of that. But to your point, we observed imbalanced Vata in him through the condition of Parkinson's. So he started to move around a lot, right? His nervous system, his nerve endings are a direct representation of how that imbalanced Vata, which we know could have been stemmed genetically, any type of reason that it came on. This isn't a way to point out like, oh, he did too many Vata inducing things in his life, so that's what happened to him. But it's a really great representation of the possibility of when someone has too much of that quality, whether that was their lifestyle choices or not, how that can represent in the physiology. In his case, he's a great example of that. So we see that now in his condition. He can't sit still, right? His nervous system is out of whack. And so that's causing him a lot of problems. So when we think too about just genetics again, he's very obvious, very Vata in his properties. So it's also possible to make the reasonable assumption that that was always going to happen for him, because he was born with so much of this. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So if talking about, like you said, it may not be that he, exposed himself intentionally to things that made his thought to go to the bad side.
Right.
But say you're exposed to something out of your control, environmentally or something, that causes your good thought then to
Go out.
south. Is that possible that happens?
Yes.
It's not just maybe what you're doing, but maybe you could have been exposed to some outside source that could have made this good thought to.
Go out about.
It's possible, right?
Sure.
Like that can, even you're not intending in your internal self for that to happen. Outside things.
Of course, so many things out of control. And for those at home, April asked about the example of Michael J. Fox of, is it possible that outside again of his control, of his lifestyle choices, anything like that, his genetic, like, are there things that he could have been exposed to outside of his control that could contribute to this? Absolutely. There are causative factors to conditions, whether those are things that we contributed to or not. I'll just use a very general example. Smoking is something that we know is a direct causative factor to lung cancer. Can we say that it that it was the only reason someone had lung cancer? No, of course not. People have genetic predispositions. There's many other factors. What if they worked at a plant where they were exposed? There's so many things. Maybe they had low immune system. Maybe they had increased kapha causing that excess tumor growth. There's all kinds of things, but we know that smoking was a contributive causative factor. Heart disease, we know that having obesity causing high blood pressure and or hypertension can contribute to that, right? So there's all kinds of things that can happen in the lifespan that can be, yes, completely outside of our control. So that's a really great question for him. Can anybody kind of take a look at, yeah, go ahead.
So Jim Carrey is a very interesting person to me, and as I grew up watching his movies with being a comedian and all the things, but I've actually watched some podcasts on him, he's just like in normal form. And
Yeah.
it's not happening. So my gut reaction originally would be to say that he's a pitta because he's go, and he's trying to achieve and he's all this, but when you watch him in a different form, I very much think he's Vata because he's still impulsive with his responses and like his movement, but he's very creative and he's very, just, I don't know. I think I would jump to say pitta, but knowing that.
Like you would assume that for sure.
Just because he's always, I mean, every movie he ever plays and like, growing up watching him, he's just so intense. But then watching him in like in his real life, he's actually just I don't know, pretty grounded, pretty calm.
So Rachel was saying that Jim Carrey, when we remember him as an actor and all the things, he's obviously got a lot of pitta because he's achievable, he's intelligent, he has a lot going for him in his life. But yet, there's obviously that Vata, fast-paced, can't sit still, qualities to his behaviors. But then there's some kapha that you could experience if you watch him in real-time interviews where he's actually quite calm and grounded, right?
Yeah, and also like the Vata part in excess, it can cause fear and anxiousness. He is kind of an anxious person. I think of like Robin Williams too. You might say pitta because he was so like, but then like I think they use their humor to kind of compensate for their actual like depression and anxiety. Yeah.
Bringing up some really great things, that's why we love these. We love the guess the dosha exercise because it's super helpful for that. So that's a good example too of this is someone who has a lot of the qualities to him. We don't know him personally, right?
But it's interesting that you're using actors because we see them when they're playing a role. So they may not in real life be that intense person. They may be just like house slippers, coffee, super chill, but you see him on the TV screen and he is just all over.
Well, we think of Jim Carrey as Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to give him any type of child's pose grounding, you would be like, that's exactly what he needs, right? So he's a good example of his behavior. It kind of goes all ways. I would say from more of a practical standpoint, based off of just kind of his like kind of middle grounding, he's a very pitta dominant person. His movement and behavior is very Vata quality, and then perhaps in his more grounded demeanor, he could have a bit of both. There is something to be said about being tridoshic, which means a balanced bit of all three. That can be possible. I'd like to point out a little bit more of an obvious one. You mentioned Gwyneth Paltrow, being Vata. You were so right on that. She's very tall, but she's quite slim. You can see her joints, you know, things like that. Same with Nicole Kidman. Tall and thin doesn't always mean that that is all Vata just because they're tall and thin, but these thin lips, you know, these petite features, of course, you know, with actors, we don't know what other special work they've had done, you know, to take them away from their born property. But these are just all ways to kind of think. I'd like to point out just one more, which would be Oprah here. So there's definitely some Pitta. She is like the head honcho of like, she's got it going on, very intelligent, very with it. But she has a lot of Kapha qualities. Her more physical makeup, very tendency towards oily skin. You can see that unctuousness in her body. She's got a more stable frame. So those would be good things. And then I think Lance Armstrong is a good representation of Pitta because he's very like athletic and very, if you look at his nose, it's extremely sharp. So Pitta qualities are fun because, or dosha qualities are fun to look at facial features because the qualities of the dosha that we say, you can see in facial features. So his nose is extremely sharp. There's some ruddy and redness to it as well. So you can see that in his physical, that sharpness of that heat in his body. And he's an athlete. And then, you know, Steve Martin, right off the bat, you know, we remember that early balding and graying and poor eyesight is a imbalanced Pitta. So I liked to point him out that, you know, those qualities are there. Remember, these things are not a direct hit, right? That's what, you know, that's the importance of seeing a practitioner like myself comes into play because there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle. It's not just we look at you and we say, boom, that's what it is.
So we all have a little bit of all of it. What did
Yeah.
you call it when you really are like truly all three? Because that's who I am.
Okay. try dosha.
It's on like the time of year that like, you know, this like time where it gets dark and
Yeah.
whatever, I all of a sudden like require excessive sleep. I not really motivated, but like in July, I'm ready to go. I'm all like, I truly go through like pretty intense phases of what I require or don't require.
Yeah, you're moving through with
And I'm
nature.
very Pitta for sure. Intense, I'm loud, and all of those things, but I can be like super not that way too. Like, oh yeah, all of a sudden it's like, hey, are you okay? I'm like a snake. Just like, I mean, just get real kind of lazy or like not motivated, you know?
So at home, they're just chatting about, you know, how they can see the examples of moving through the process of life, the seasons of life, the seasons of nature around us, and how our physiology can augment towards that. And that's indicative of balance in a lot of ways. So those are good examples. So we're going to go ahead and move on. So I wanted to ask which dosha resonates with you. So this is where we get to really put the pieces to the puzzle together. Your third sheet in the handout that you have, and then Tracy at home, it's been emailed to you, is your property assessment form. If you don't already have a pen, I can hand them out to you. So this is a really fun exercise. Try not to take it too intensely, too seriously, but it just gives you a chance to, it just gives you a chance to kind of read through some of these questions and see if there are things that resonate with you. So you'll kind of go down the list here. So at the very top, the first question is about your face and complexion. And then moving to the right, we have Vata qualities, Pitta qualities, and Kapha qualities there. I really just want you to put a check mark into the box that resonates with you the most. Of course, it's not going to be a perfect fit for everybody, but this is just an exercise to give you a chance to kind of see where you dominate. And try not to think too hard about it. Just kind of go straight with what feels right to you off the bat, and kind of go down the list. And if you can put that relative score next to your check mark on that second box there where it shows the score for each section. So it'll be 5, 5, 7.5, all those things. And if you have a question, please let me know and I can come to you and help you kind of make sense of some things.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I've done this before actually, and I did it wrong.
And there's no wrong or right.
Well,
it's
then
just-
I didn't do wrong.
That's okay.
So here you go, like, put it on. So let's do this first one. So which one? I think it depends.
I would put what's most relevant and consistent for you.
The body weight.
So when we go to body weight, that's a light, medium, heavy. It's more kind of a way to understand. So Vata would be like in light, like you tend towards thin and it's really hard to gain weight. Pitta would be medium. It's kind of in the middle. You neither gain or lose weight easily. You're pretty stable. And then Kapha would be, it's a little bit more difficult for you to lose weight. You stay heavier for you.
It's just gonna be a quick conversation. Nothing to fill out, just look at each other and say which one, which we've got. Perfect. If you wanna hang out with Tracy, that would be good.
Yes. So, yes, great, thank you for bringing that. So for tendons and veins line, it kind of means like, go ahead and hold your wrist out in front of you and just observe, is that something you easily see, your tendons, your joints, like things like that, are they very prominent on top of your hand and down the wrist? Are they kind of medium covered, or is it kind of more difficult to see them all together?
So she was saying, notice if your veins and knuckles and your joints are very prominent. That was one of the questions here.
Well, I chose not to.
I love this exercise. It's always so fun. If you're a Pitta dominant person, don't be surprised if you love filling out forms about yourself. It's so much fun. It's my favorite thing in the world.
That's hilarious.
I have no problem at the doctor's office filling out forms. I love doing it. I find it to be a fun exercise. Yeah. Go for it. Okay, so let's.
And if you hate it,
get the
yeah.
digestion ones all
Tracy
written out,
says,
guys.
What if you
Very
hate
bottom,
filling
skip
it out?
digestion
Yeah,
for
that's
today.
probably,
So just go ahead and add up all
Vata.
of your scores.
I don't like doing it
So if
either.
you click on that, yeah, and then just go down that and then add them at the end and that'll kind of tell you which one dominates. A little bit more point wise.
And if you look online, there's a ton of different quizzes like
Yes.
this. Banyan Botanicals has one. I like the way this one is made up because some of them can be kind of confusing.
Yeah, like she said, if you go online and Google dosha assessment, there are so many different styles. And they all ask relevant but varying ways of getting to the main point.
Have you ever had someone who was just Vata like through?
Yeah.
I don't think I've checked another box.
Yes, absolutely. That's great.
They were asking if we'd ever had anybody that was one thing through and through, and that is sometimes the case. Yeah. And some people are like tridoshic, like you said, even across the board, like
And
maybe
some
all.
people are too. Some people are pretty
Yeah.
across the board with two. That's the most common is someone that's like, I'm a Pitta Vata.
I'm always Vata Pitta.
Yeah.
Very close call.
All right, is everybody feeling like they've been able to add up their scores and feel comfy cozy with making sense of it a little bit? Does anybody? Okay, not quite. Anybody that has completed it, now that you've gotten there and you understand a little bit more about the different Vata, Pitta, Kapha doshas? Do you feel like it makes sense to you? Great.
Well, I knew I would dominate in Pitta, just based on a lot of things. I knew I had a lot of Vata. I thought I would have had a little more Kapha than I did. The only one I marked on that was temperature, because I'm, in my, I guess, phase of life, like I'm finished having kids, but I'm not to like menopause. So I feel like temperature wise, I do pretty well. Like I remember being hot more, you know, hormonal or whatever. I've kind of balanced out with that, but I guess I thought that I might have a little more.
But you can see how when you're filling out the form, like different seasons of life,
But that's what I was saying.
it might
I should
change for
really
you,
choose,
yeah.
Like,
And this is supposed to be a general assessment for kind of the whole span so far for you. Like what's been the kind of more consistent thing? And like you said, it's going to ebb and flow a bit. It's not meant to be a perfect science. And this, if you did this again in 10 years, it'll change.
What does it say when you've got two that are pretty close?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
one that you have not even one.
Yes, so-
Tell her to go omit
And
that.
I only have one saying, 2.5 points is very low.
So Tracy, she said to omit the digestion for today, just for time's sake.
So Willow is asking about if you have like a lot of even count between two doshas and not really one of the third.
Yeah.
That's the most common.
Oh,
Because
that is, okay.
it's the most common to be a blend of two majority. Because again, we all have all of them, but for a lot of us, it's gonna be an even split. A lot of people are gonna be like a Vata Pitta, Pitta Vata, Pitta Kapha.
So that's.
And if you think about it, it's made up of your parents at conception. So if you had maybe a Vata mother and a Pitta father, and they came together, and maybe on that day have those qualities more evident within them, then that's going to be what part of what makes up who you are.
Well, if you guys are ready, we're gonna move on to the next phase here. And you're gonna take this stuff home, so feel free to go home to your partner, to your kids, whoever, and have some fun with it, have that conversation. But since we do have even pairs here today, if you guys are open to it, I thought it would be fun to just take a moment and just turn, you guys can be partners, y'all, and then just kind of say generally whether you know this person intimately or not, just based off of looking at you and just watching you talk for the past hour or so. Which one do you think that dominates of them?
Just a minute or so.
Just a minute. It's fun for people to make sense and like they were sharing as a very, it's really helpful to understand these and how to put out compassion. Okay. And that's aggravated and frustrated. How can we help to offer some balance?
Okay, so we're going to be moving on now to the next thing.
Okay, boys and girls, so we did our partner assessment. We did which dosha resonates with us. So I wanted to just talk about the application of practically moving into how we can make this practical into our day-to-day lives. Tracy, I'm hoping that you can see me because I can't see you anymore.
Oh, we have to screen share again.
Aha. And we're gonna go back into,
It's recording. but
oh,
you
it is
have to-
recording. Excellent. Okay, so let's share screen. Okay, good deal. Share. Okay, awesome. So rhythms of nature and use. So how can we make this practical, some of these tools that we've learned, some of these qualities that we've learned into our lives, right? So when nature is aligned, including us as nature, our bodies, we're in health, we have balance. And so we've talked about qualities to restore balance and identify when something is in imbalance. This is a principle in Ayurveda called samanya and vishesha. Samanya means balance, vishesha means out of balance. Oh, we're missing the page. Sorry, guys. All the tech. Two more. Yeah, one more. All right, so this is the principle of Samanya and Vishesha, which means similars and opposites, okay? So let's use Pitta as a really great example. I always like to use that as heat, something, there's a lot of fire going on, right? So if we participate in lifestyle things, whether that's food, say super spicy, pungent, hot temperature foods, or pungent, spicy emotions, we're getting upset with traffic. We're watching things on television that may contribute to frustration and anger. These are things that we can augment and change to give us the opposite of that quality. We're having too much heat in the body. We have hyperacidity. There's too much. How can we give our body cooling properties to combat that? What yoga postures when we're feeling super frustrated, we're feeling stubborn, what yoga postures can we do to cool ourselves down? Right? Contrary, we're feeling really anxious, there's a lot going on in our heads, things out of our control. What grounding things can we do for ourselves? Meditations, child's pose to ground us. Foods that are grounding, maybe a little bit more heavy. So Vata is that anxious, overthinking. There's a lot of air and lack of substance there. Maybe we can have hearty, dense soups, something that brings that warmth and that fulfillment back in. Another contrary, we're feeling depressive. We're feeling heavy, cough is out of balance. We've had too much heaviness. What are some light and uplifting yoga postures we can do to stimulate ourselves? What are some foods that are stimulating we could eat to stimulate that digestion when we're feeling really dull and heavy and we're not processing food really well? What spices? Think about things like ginger, things that are like really, really pungent, stimulating, right? Spices, spicy things. So these are all just kind of principles that you can start to apply in your daily life. So now that you know what the qualities of the dosha is, you know what part of the body that dosha controls, or the mind, or behavior, you know now, okay, that means I have a lot of excess heat going on somewhere, somehow. I need to cool. Right? So just applying these principles practically and with ease. These are things that make Ayurveda so special, is we don't have to complicate our lives. We don't have to reach for the fad going on. We don't have to overstress. We can just make it simple. There's a term up there called dinacharya. It means your daily routine. So the best thing that you can do in Ayurveda is achieve your optimal daily routine for you. From waking to sleeping, what are the pieces of the puzzle? What are we eating, drinking, avoiding? What are we favoring in our lives that will continue to bring balance when we're feeling imbalanced? So the big question is, how do we align with our Prakriti, that individual constitution, that nature within us, and thrive each day? So just quick tidbits here. Vatas, remain grounded. It's that principle of the opposite there. Pittas, remain cool. Remain chill. Kathas, remain stimulated. Keep moving, keep going. And we can achieve these things through all of those multiple dimensions of wellness we talked about at the very beginning of the workshop. And so we're going to take a quick break. And this is just a quick chance, just a few minutes here. Go potty, use the restroom, get some tea. It'll give us a chance to have some conversation. I know that there might be a lot of questions people might have. And then we'll jump back in. We'll have just some final closing statements, and Sarah and I have things we want to share.
Yep, just a little 5-minute break.
And I'm going to stop our recording here, Tracy, but you'll still be on. Oh, pause. Zoom share. Where did my slideshow go? How do I get back to like the whole thing?
Okay, so you'll have to stop share and then start again. Cause you paused it.
Thank you for that. That was wild. I know it's here, screen share.
She had to take that from she exercised because I remember,
That just even mean different than legs.
when she would work out and get heated, her body, the histamine would come out and she would just get flaming red. And
Pitta, pitta, pitta.
I did that. I don't do it anymore.
I mean,
But I did.
Okay, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the last segment here, which Sarah's gonna walk us through a fantastic attunement exercise to gather all this material.
So, again, with kind of a meditative pose, so maybe leaning back in your chair, legs uncrossed, feet underneath your knees, spine tall or supported. And just come back into your soma, your living body. So you might close down your eyes or soften your gaze to a focal point in front of you. As you settle into a comfortable position, invite your breath into the whole body, getting a sense of your whole body. Again, inviting full awareness of sensation. Maybe you had some warm tea on the break or relieved yourself. Maybe you're feeling kind of like the excitement of learning something new. Observe how that's showing up in your body. So having a body and being within a body, we take form in many ways in this human experience. We have stories and layers of identity within our physical body. We might feel our body is attractive or unattractive. We might feel it's healthy or unhealthy. We have all of these elements within us and around us in our experiences in nature that are constantly changing how we feel inside of our body. So as you connect to this part of you, this attentiveness to your nature and the nature around you, we investigate those 5 elements. So right now, tapping into your body, begin to feel the qualities of hardness and softness, perceived as pressure and texture. This is the earth element. Feel the weight of your body pressing down with gravity, the contact of the floor, the texture or contact with your clothing. Feel your body and its places of contact to the earth or the props beneath you. Sensing pressure and hardness, softness, and the label earth. This is the earth element, always changing based on condition. And from the sense of firmness and softness, shift your attention to the quality of liquidity and cohesion. This might be a little harder to sense. Begin to sense that moisture in your mouth. Maybe you're starting to have the gurgle of water in your stomach or hunger growling in the belly. We know the body is made up of water, saliva, tears, blood, urine, and mucus. And the quality of water is holding together the way that liquid in a recipe binds flour into dough. You can sense how the water in your body binds you into one piece so that there is connectedness from head to foot, found in the liquid of our fascia, synovial fluid in our joints. Binding, this is water in the body. Now turn your attention to temperature. Warm and cool are the spectrum of temperature within the fire element. Feel your temperature. Feel the parts in your body where temperature feels more pronounced. Maybe you're warmer where there's clothing and cooler where bare skin meets the air. Everything within our ecosystem bears pressure, liquidity, temperature. And they're all qualities changing all the time based on condition. The element fire, felt in temperature, is always changing. And the last of the physical elements is the element of wind. Wind is not a substance, but an activity. It is the quality of movement, the air moving around us. If you're still, you might notice the movement of your breath moving within your body. The wind is not the air itself coming in and out, but the movement of your body breathing. The air element. If you start to move a body part, maybe wiggle your fingers, your toes, turn your head side to side, move your spine into flexion and extension, any of those movements, we can feel the air shifting and changing around us. And movement is a quality of us moving through air. The last of the great elements is the element of space or ether. It is a quality, not a substance. It's the sense that we get of our distance between things. The space that we are in, the walls around us, the floor, even the distance of one arm from the other. There's a sense of knowing how far things are apart from each other. Things that are close, some touching, and others far, far apart. Sense the quality of distance in the space around you. And as our body moves, as our fingers wiggle, our toes wiggle, they move through space. Constantly changing distance between yourself and other objects as you move through life. So now sense your one beautiful and inhabited whole and complete body as manifesting all of the qualities of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. You, like all things in nature, are made up of these elements, unfolding as a natural process, unfolding through life as all life does based on condition. So when you're ready, bringing yourself back with small movements, maybe a few deep breaths, maybe blinking your eyes open, moving, coming back into your space.
You just want to come home with me and just talk me to sleep every single night?
I'd be a millionaire if I got paid a nickel for every time somebody asked me to come and put them to sleep.
If you could, that'd be great. I'd love to hire you full time.
They're like, is it offensive that I fall asleep every time you talk? I'm like, not really. It's my
That's my
job.
goal, yeah.
Yeah.
It works fantastically. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so to conclude today, these are just some key takeaways here for some of the things that we discussed. Key takeaways in terms of Ayurvedic lifestyle. We want to have a consistent wake and sleep time. When we do that, it makes all of these other pieces to the puzzle work better. The body thrives on routine. It's a machine. We want to recognize the tendency in our health and therefore live accordingly with nature. So let's live with our dosha now that you know a little bit more about what that may be for you. We'll avoid anything in excess, right? Now that we know the principle of the samanya visesha, the similars and opposites, if we do too much of an excessive thing, it'll increase that dosha, it'll increase that element. That's when illness can take place. An interesting one today is we want to avoid extremely cold and food and drinks. This is a fun one because if we think about the ancient people, they didn't have refrigerators and they didn't have ice machines. It's okay that we do now. There's time and a place for all things, but this is an example of excessive. Our bodies are 98.6 degrees on average. We shock our system by drinking iced beverages and eating extremely cold temperature foods regularly. This can really inhibit that natural flow that we're learning more today is so important. We'll meditate when we can and incorporate these practices that we've learned today as needed, thereby reducing our stress. The foods that we put into our body, when possible, hopefully can be cooked fresh and eaten at that time. When we think about the energetic qualities of the things that we put into our bodies, we want that food, that fuel that we put into our bodies to be fresh. When we eat things that are not freshly cooked, takeout, frozen, that we then heat in the microwave, it loses that vitality of the nutrition. This is when possible. Life is difficult sometimes and we have to do what we have to do. Kids have to eat before they go to soccer practice. We're in survival mode, but let's try and just be more aware when we can. If you're starting to feel like your tummy is growling right now, this would make a lot of sense because according to Ayurveda, when the sun reaches its peak, highest in the sky, hours about 11:30 a.m. to about 2 p.m., this is pitta time of day. It is time to eat. It's time to pacify that stomach organ that's starting to churn. So if your stomach's churning and you're feeling that hunger right now, it's that hydrochloric acid trying to do stuff to no food inside of there. It's empty. So that's just indicative that you're connected to nature. You know, the sun is a representation of the stomach organ. It's made of that fire pungent heat. So conceptually, or when we think about if the sun is up high, that's a good time to eat food. When the sun is low or obsolete, it means we shouldn't be eating food. Our digestion capacity is highest with the sun and lowest with the moon. It's a basic Ayurvedic principle. So we'll eat our biggest meal at lunchtime. So after you leave here today, please go have a nice, good, nourishing, fresh meal if possible. And then if you know me or are willing to get to know me a little bit further, hot water is the cure of all. You all drink plenty of tea today. It's the best, right? If there's any blockages in the body, if there's anything going on and we need to cleanse toxins that are sitting in our organs or our tissues, we got to have that warmth. We got to have that movement. So again, opposing drinking an ice water right now, it's best to drink warm liquids. We want to keep those channels open, keep everything moving. So this time of year, if you or yourself or have any friends or family that are dealing with cold flu season, they're congested, they have blockages in the body, tell them to drink hot water out of a thermos all day for 3 days straight. And it will tremendously help improve those problems very quickly. And it's free. and easy to incorporate. So those are key takeaways. You can see those for your home reference material, the very back page. There's a lot of information here on the basics. It pertains a lot more to our eating habits, but those are the basics there. So,
And we'll be sending those out in an email after this class too, with the recording of the Zoom and everything so that you can refer back to it later.
and yeah, and this is our information for both of our businesses here. So if you want to scan QR codes, or we'll email you the links for both of us today with this material. If you have questions for us, let us know. We're both offering free consultations for those of you that participated, and Tracy, you at home as well. Great value there, gives you time to explore more intimately your needs with either of us or both of us, hopefully.
Yeah, so free consultations with either of us for yoga therapy or Ayurveda if you are interested in scheduling it today. And of course, back on the table back there, we have my next workshop's coming up, and Alex and I are going to coordinate one January 11th from 9:30 to 12:30. So after the first of the year, we're going to go over practical wisdom of Ayurveda and yoga for women's health in particular. So we're going to be talking about all the phases that women go through, perimenopause, menopause, etc., and talking about how you can use Ayurveda and yoga to help you in those times of your life too. And the workshop that I'll be teaching after that on January 11th is manifesting the life of your dreams. So working with a pocket vision board and yoga skill sets to help you start to create actionable steps towards the goals in all aspects of your life. So your dharma, as Alex mentioned earlier, your purpose in life, your home life, your relationships, etc. And then if you sign up for the
Yes.
class with Alex and I today, in January 11th for women's health, you get $10 off. And you'll see Alex about purchasing that to get the discount today if you want.
Thank you all so much for coming. This was so fun. We can't wait to do it again.
It was great, and we'd love to know if you have more questions, if there's anything that we didn't cover that you would like kind of answered, if you're still kind of confounded by any subject, please let us know. We'd love to answer that for you.
Yep, and then on the back table, there's some herbs that I have brought today. The standard 5 that Ayurveda, it kind of works for every body and every physiology most needs there. I can explain, of course, what each of them are specifically for. There's also tongue scrapers in the back if you're interested in purchasing one of those too. In Ayurveda, tongue scraping after your oral hygiene routine is just a great way to rid of toxins that are sitting in the body. It's something you can do morning and night every time you brush your teeth, especially this time of year. Again, great asset when you're feeling congestion, feeling like things aren't processing well. You just scrape all that nastiness off. So just great for oral hygiene in general. Those are $10, and then the herbs are different varying prices. And then lastly, you'll see 3 different essential oil bottles in front of those. They're Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So I just wanted to encourage you, if you found your dominant dosha today, to do a couple of drops on your inner wrist right here and take a couple sniffs so you can take that energy with you on your way home today. So Tracy, next time we see you in person, we'll let you try out the essential oils.
Anybody have any
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great. Thank you.
Right. You're welcome. Thank you. I hope you have a great weekend. Reach out to us if you need us, and you'll be receiving all of this material in just a bit, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll include the discount code for the January Women's Health Workshop in that email, but it expires in 24 hours. So if it's something that you're excited about, please take advantage while you can.
Thank you. Perfect.
Questions before we log off today?
I don't think so.
Cool, girlfriend. Well, it's great to see ya.
Yes, thank you. Nice to
holidays.
meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Here in the office, being a tour. And I'm here usually Tuesdays or Thursdays. I'm seeking your opposed with that, okay? Just for me, practicing, okay? Okay, well, then you can get